Hi guys, and welcome to Storytime with George and Amber. I'm Amber, and today I'm going to be reading The Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide on what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none of them seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror, and she screamed. I wonder what's going to happen. Here she is with all of her outfits. Her mother ran into the room. She screamed too. "Oh my heavens," she cried. "You're completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Miss Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camilla answered. "But just look at me." "You get back to bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was revealed. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid what the other kids would say, and she had no idea what to wear with these crazy stripes. Here she is in bed. That afternoon, Mr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. "Most extraordinary," he explained. "I've never seen anything like this. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flash, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness, or breath, or uncomfortable twitching?" "No," Camilla told him. "I feel fine." "Well, Dr. Bumblebee said, turning to Miss Green, "I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those strips in a few days. You know where to reach me. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me." And off he went. And here is examining Camilla. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Cream, Knight of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal. But when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her strip turned red, white, and blue, and she broke in stars. That's pretty cool. Imagine if that actually happened. There she is in her class, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and red, white, and blue, and stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else started checkerboard. A pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everybody was calling out different shapes and colors. Poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on TV. Wow, look at her. Everybody's calling stuff, and here are the checkerboards, and here are polka dots, with like camouflage, the Pledge of Allegiance, like alphabet. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction, and I've been getting calls from other parents. They're afraid that those stripes may be contagious." Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her, and now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day. Well, I see Dr. Bumble. Wait. Well, yes, I see, Dr. Bumble muttered when Miss Cream phoned the next day. "I think I'd better bring this specialist. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Miss Bumblebee arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. "This is Mr. Crop, Mr. Sponge, Mr. Cricket, and Mr. Young." Then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They sneezed, they squeezed and jabbed and tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. Well, the mumps concluded Mr. Glove. Oh, the measles, said Mr. Sponge. Definitely not the chicken pox, put in Mr. Crackit. Or sunburn, said the young Dr. Young. Try these, said the specialist. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. Take one of each before you go to bed, said Mr. Cobb. They filled out the front door and followed Dr. Bumble. They tapping, testing, squeezing, doing all kinds of stuff to Camilla. That night, Camilla took a medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant multicolored pill with her face on it. So then she ate pills. She turned into a pill, except she's got her legs and her hands. Dr. Bumblebee rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialist, he brought in the experts. Dr. Crud and Mr. Melvin were finest scientists, minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled over together and whispered. Dr. Crud finally spoke. It might be a virus, he announced. With authorities suddenly fizzy, the virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Or possibly some form of bacteria, said Dr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be fungus. Dr. Cord instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotchers. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. We need to go over these numbers again back at the lab. Dr. Cord explained. We'll call you when we know something. But the expert didn't have a clue, much less a cure. Here they are. Camilla's popping fungus and virus balls and all type of stuff. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. Here they are, everybody, some people, this is probably Camilla's house, and they're knocking on her door, gonna see if she says anything. Everybody's here. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies from the psychologist, Alice, her biologist, nutritionist, physical, and old medical man, a Grug, even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard even to recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and long furry tail, but nothing worked. This is Camilla. She looks completely different. And here is watching the news from outside her house. Wow. She has crystals and feathers and everything. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she would cure Camilla. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply and become one with your room. I wish she hadn't said that, Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt onto the walls of her room, and her bed became her master. Her nose was her dresser, and two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. What are you going to do? Cried Mrs. Cream. It just keeps getting worse and worse. She began to sob. At the moment, Mrs. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. She opened it, and there stood a little old woman who was just as plump, as sweet as a strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. Here's the old lady at the front door. She went into Camilla's room and looked around. My goodness, she said with a shake of her head. Here's a bad case of stripes. One of the worst I've ever seen. She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. Here, she said, these might be the trick. Are those magic beans? asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh my, no," replied kind old woman. "They're no such thing. They're just plain old lima beans. I bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big heaping plate full of lima beans more than just about anything, but she's still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes beans, lima beans, especially me." "Oh dear," said the woman sadly. "I guess I was wrong about you." She put her beans back in her bag and started towards the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she had gone through. She finally couldn't stand it. "Wait," she cried. "The truth is, I really love lima beans." "I thought so," said the little old woman, said with a smile. She took a handful of lima beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. So they come out, and here is Camilla, and the lady is putting lima beans inside her mouth. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tail began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around and stopped. There stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. "I'm cured," she shouted. "Yes," said the old woman. "I knew the real you was in there somewhere." She patted Camilla on the head, and she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Here's Camilla. Everything is going away. And there she is. Afterwards, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had a touch of the stripes again. And here, look at her bow. It's striped, like she was. And she eating lima beans. That is the end of the book. See you next time on Storytime with George and Amber. Bye.